Order, order in the Grand Council. High Councillor Vexner's crystalline appendages clinked against the ceremonial gong, sending ripples through his translucent body. The assembled representatives of the Galactic Confederation gradually settled into their environmental chambers, a collection of the most advanced species in the known universe. "We're gathered here today to discuss the most pressing matter in Sector 7, Vexner continued, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with barely concealed disdain. "The discovery of yet another intelligent species." A chorus of groans and clicks echoed through the chamber. Several council members activated their neural interfaces to access the data packets, while others simply rolled their compound eyes or equivalent sensory organs. "Seriously, another one?" Councillor Chixra buzzes, her antennae twitching in annoyance. "Let me guess, carbon-based, bipedal, and thinking they're the center of the universe?" "Worse," High Commander Zixthrax stepped forward, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming under the artificial light. "They call themselves humans, and they live on a death world they named Earth." He spat the word like it was a particularly disgusting protein cluster. The holographic display activated, showing Earth specifications. "Just look at this disaster," Zixthrax gestured with one of his four arms. "Extreme temperature variations, toxic oxygen atmosphere, deadly radiation from their star, and, would you believe it, they're mostly made of water." "Water?" The methane-breathing representative from Gaseous Cluster 9 bubbled in horror. "How do they not dissolve?" "They don't just survive it," Zixthrax continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "They drink it, for fun. And they swim in it, in huge collections of it they call oceans." "Barbaric," muttered a silicon-based entity from the outer rim. "But here's the truly amusing part." Zixthrax's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smirk among his species. "They think they're advanced because they've achieved nuclear fission and basic space travel. They haven't even unified their planet under a single government." The chamber erupted in chittering laughter. Several species had to adjust their gravity stabilizers as they shook with amusement. "I propose," Zixthrax raised his voice over the commotion, "that we add them to the Protectorate. Obviously, they need our guidance." His eyes glowed with barely concealed ambition. "My fleet stands ready to begin the standard peaceful subjugation protocols." Vexner waved a crystalline appendage dismissively. "Any objections to assigning the human situation to High Commander Zixthrax?" The silence was punctuated only by the occasional whir of environmental systems and the soft ping of neural interfaces. "Very well," Vexnor concluded. "Permission granted to proceed with Protocol 223B, peaceful subjugation of pre-FTL species. Do try not to break them entirely, Commander. The paperwork for extinct species is quite tedious." As the council members filed out, nobody noticed the small warning flag in the data packet about human military capabilities. After all, what could a species that still used chemical propulsion possibly do against the mighty Galactic Confederation? They were about to find out. High Commander Zixthrax stood proudly on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable Victory, as his fleet dropped out of FTL above Earth. The standard subjugation procedure was simple. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, accept surrender, install puppet government. He'd done it 16 times before. "Begin broadcast on all frequencies," he ordered, mandibles clicking in anticipation. "And make sure to use their primitive radio waves too. We wouldn't want them to miss our generous offer." The communication officer, Lieutenant PIX, activated the universal translator. Zixthrax cleared his throat membrane and began his practice speech. "People of Earth, we come in peace," he managed to say before Lieutenant PIX interrupted. "Sir, we're receiving thousands of responses in over 70 different formats and languages." "What, just pick the most common one?" The speakers crackled to life with a response from something called the United Nations Security Council. "Request denied. Please remove your vessels from Earth's orbital space immediately." Zixthrax's antenna twitched in confusion. This wasn't in the standard procedure manual. Did they just refuse our peaceful subjugation? "Sir," another officer called out, "I'm detecting numerous launches from the planet's surface." "Excellent," Zixthrax relaxed. "They're sending their leaders for negotiation. Prepare the welcome." "Those aren't diplomatic vessels," the sensor officer's voice rose in pitch. "They're projectiles. Thousands of them." "Ridiculous," Zixthrax scoffed. "Their primitive missiles can't possibly." The ship rocked violently as the first wave of nuclear-tipped missiles detonated against their shields. Warning klaxons blared across the fleet. Shield capacity at 60% and dropping. The defense officer's appendages flew across the control panel. These barbarians are using atomic weapons. In space, that's against at least 7 galactic conventions. They never signed those conventions, Lieutenant PX pointed out unhelpfully. Sir, multiple small craft approaching. They appear to be ramming our ships. Zixthrax watched in horror as Earth fighters deliberately crashed into his vessels, their pilots ejecting at the last second. They're insane. Who sacrifices perfectly good spacecraft? Update from planetary observation, Lieutenant Prix announced. Humans are celebrating. They're broadcasting something called Independence Day on repeat, and, sir, they're comparing us to something called alien scum from their entertainment archives. The bridge rocked again as another wave of missiles hit. Shields at 30%. We're detecting energy buildups from multiple ground-based installations. Impossible. Their technology level shouldn't allow. A massive particle beam lanced through space, cutting one of his support ships in half. They've weaponized their particle accelerators. The science officer sounded almost impressed. The humans converted their research facilities into weapons. Sir, Lieutenant Pix's voice was small. We're receiving a message from their military command. The speakers crackled again. This is Admiral Chen of Earth Defense Command. Your shields are failing, and our second wave is launching. You have 5 minutes to retreat, or become a very expensive fireworks display. Also, thanks for the shield frequency data, your communications encryption was cute. As if to emphasize the point, the next barrage of missiles passed straight through their weakened shields, detonating against the hull. Critical damage on decks 4 through 12, multiple hull breaches. They're not stopping, more missiles incoming. Sir, what are your orders? Zixthrax stood frozen, watching his mighty fleet being dismantled by a species that hadn't even achieved FTL travel. A species that turned research equipment into weapons, that sacrificed spacecraft like ammunition, that treated nuclear weapons as their opening move. Retreat, he whispered, then louder. Retreat, full emergency FTL jump. As the remnants of his fleet fled into hyperspace, the last thing they heard over the comm was Admiral Chen's voice. And don't forget to tell your friends. Lieutenant PX, nursing a wound from a console explosion, dared to ask, Sir, what do we tell the Council? Zixthrax's mandibles drooped in defeat. Tell them we may need to revise our definition of primitive. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Chen paced in front of the holographic display at Earth Defense Command headquarters. They'll be back. And next time, they won't be sending a peaceful subjugation fleet. The assembled military leaders from around the globe watched as simulation data scrolled across their screens. The first encounter had given them valuable intel about alien capabilities, but it had also revealed just how much catching up they needed to do. Our nuclear deterrent worked once, Chen continued, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. But they'll adapt. The question is, can we adapt faster? We've already converted the CERN facility into a defensive weapon, Dr. Rodriguez chimed in from the science division, and we're retrofitting other particle accelerators worldwide. But we need something more unexpected. General Thompson from NASA leaned forward. What about Project Orion? The nuclear pulse propulsion system? Chen's eyes lit up. The one we abandoned because it was too destructive? Exactly, Thompson grinned. We've got thousands of warheads just sitting around. Why not turn them into the galaxy's most aggressive propulsion system? Meanwhile, in deep space, High Commander Zixthrax was facing a very different kind of meeting. You mean to tell me, Councillor Vexnor's crystalline form vibrated with rage, that these primitives not only refused subjugation but damaged half your fleet? With all due respect, Zixthrax tried to maintain his dignity. We severely underestimated their capacity for violence. They weaponized scientific equipment. Who does that? Irrelevant, Vexnor snapped. The Council has authorized a full invasion force, 3 fleets, maximum power. Show these humans the consequences of defying the Confederation. Back on Earth, preparations continued at a frantic pace. You want to do what with the space stations? Chen stared at the proposal in front of him. Colonel Wu smiled. Turn them into kinetic bombardment platforms. The aliens think they're civilian research stations. They won't expect them to start dropping tungsten rods from orbit. And the moon base? Already being converted into a mass driver facility, Wu replied. We're calling it Project Zeus. One shot from that baby will put a hole through any ship they've got. Dr. Rodriguez walked in, tablet in hand. "Admiral, you need to see this. We've analyzed their shield technology. It's impressive, but it has one critical flaw. They never designed it to handle multiple types of attacks simultaneously." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Their shields are like specialized filters. They can block energy weapons or physical impacts very effectively, but not both at once. They never expected to need to. Because no civilized species would use such crude mixed tactics," Chen chuckled. "Their overconfidence is our advantage." The next few weeks saw the largest coordinated military effort in human history. Satellites were weaponized, space stations were fortified, and the moon became humanity's ultimate trump card. In Confederation space, Zixthrax prepared his expanded fleet, completely unaware of the changes taking place. "Look at their primitive orbital installations," he sneered to his officers. "They haven't even attempted to move them. They must know they can't defend them." Lieutenant Puix, now promoted to commander after surviving the first encounter, looked uncertain. "Sir, should we really be assuming anything about these humans? Remember what happened last time?" "Last time they caught us by surprise," Zixthrax dismissed the concern. "This time we're prepared. 3 fleets, maximum shields, and we know their tactics." "But, sir, our intelligence suggests they've been unusually busy." "Probably cowering in fear," another officer laughed. "What else could these primitives do?" Back on Earth, Admiral Chen was reviewing the final preparations when an aide rushed in. "Sir, long-range detection systems are picking up multiple FTL signatures. 3 fleets, at least 5 times larger than the first force." Chen didn't even look up from his tablet. "Right on schedule. Send the coded signal to all installations. Operation Darwin is now in effect." "Darwin, sir?" Chen finally looked up, a predatory grin spreading across his face. "Natural selection. Time to show the galaxy why Earth species are at the top of our food chain." He turned to the global command channel. "All units, this is Admiral Chen. The enemy thinks they know what we're capable of. They think they've learned our limits. They're wrong. Everything we did before was just a warm-up." "Sir," the aide interrupted, "Commander Wu reports that Project Zeus is powered up and ready. Dr. Rodriguez confirms all particle accelerators are converted and synchronized. General Thompson reports the Orion fleet is ready for launch." "Excellent." Chen walked to the window, watching as the night sky lit up with the approaching alien fleet. "You know, I almost feel sorry for them. They're about to learn a very important lesson about humanity." "What's that, sir?" "We don't just adapt to survive, we adapt to win." He turned back to the command center. "And we're about to give the galaxy one hell of a demonstration." The first shot of the battle wasn't fired by the massive alien fleet approaching Earth. It wasn't fired by Earth's defense forces either. Instead, it came from what the aliens had dismissed as a harmless weather satellite. The satellite turned out to be housing a miniaturized nuclear device that detonated right in the middle of the alien formation, creating an electromagnetic pulse that disrupted their formation and communications. "What in the name of the void was that?" Zixthrax steadied himself as his flagship systems rebooted. "Since when do primitives hide weapons in weather monitoring equipment?" "Sir," Commander Pix's voice was tense, "all our outdated files on human orbital infrastructure, they might be intentionally misleading." Before Zixthrax could respond, the real attack began. The converted International Space Station revealed its true nature as a kinetic weapon platform, launching tungsten rods at near-relativistic speeds. The Chinese space station followed suit, its supposedly scientific modules opening to reveal banks of laser weaponry. "Multiple impacts across the fleet," an officer screamed. "They're targeting our shield generators with precision strikes." "Impossible. Their targeting systems shouldn't be that accurate." "Sir, detecting massive energy spike from their moon." Project Zeus, the mass driver built into the lunar surface, fired its first shot. A depleted uranium projectile the size of a bus, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, tore through 3 capital ships before its kinetic energy dissipated. By the first species, Zixthrax watched in horror as his carefully planned formation began to break apart. "Launch fighters, begin planetary bombardment. Show these savages what a real space force can do." The alien fighters streamed toward Earth, only to meet humanity's surprise. The Orion fleet. Spacecraft powered by continuous nuclear explosions, each detonation propelling them forward while simultaneously creating a deadly radiation wake for any pursuing craft. "They're using nuclear explosions for propulsion." Commander Pix's mandibles dropped in shock. "The radiation levels alone should kill their pilots." "Lead-lined cockpits," came the response over the human broadcast channels. "Plus, we really like our energy drinks and anti-radiation meds. Keep up, Squidface." The battle spread across Earth orbit, a chaotic dance of physics-defying maneuvers and brutal exchanges of fire. Human ships, despite their technological disadvantages, fought with a savagery that terrified their alien opponents. "Sir, they're using their disabled ships as weapons." The tactical officer's report was frantic. "They're overloading their reactors and steering them into our formations." Some alien ships managed to break through to begin planetary bombardment, only to face Earth's ground-based defenses. Particle accelerators, repurposed into massive energy weapons, fired beams that cut through alien shields. Traditional military bases revealed hidden surface-to-space weapons platforms. "These humans," Zix-Thrax muttered, watching another wing of his fleet disappear in nuclear fire. "They've turned their entire planet into a weapon." The ground war wasn't going any better for the invasion forces. Alien troops landing in Russia faced not only military resistance, but also the brutal winter. Those landing in Australia encountered not just soldiers but wildlife that seemed specifically evolved to kill anything that moved. "Command, this is Ground Force 7, a panicked alien commander reported. "The humans are using biological weapons." "Specify the weapon type," Command responded. "They call them mosquitoes and honey badgers, and something called cassowaries just took out an entire platoon." In the Amazon, alien forces discovered that humans had weaponized the environment itself. In urban areas, every street became a potential ambush site. Even civilian infrastructure proved deadly. One alien squad was eliminated when they tried to take cover in what turned out to be a sewage treatment plant. "Sir," Commander Pix addressed Zix-Thrax, watching another disaster unfold. "I think I understand now. Everything on their planet has tried to kill them since they evolved. They didn't develop technology to make life easier, they developed it to survive. And now they're using everything they learned against us," Zix-Thrax realized. "Every survival adaptation, every defensive measure, every tool they created to combat their harsh world." The brutal reality of the situation became clear as another moon shot from Project Zeus obliterated his flagship's primary defense screen. Emergency force fields snapped into place just as a barrage of kinetic rounds from the orbital platforms struck the hull. 60% of the fleet is either destroyed or disabled," an officer reported. "The humans are now launching something they call boarding parties." "Boarding parties? In space combat?" Zix-Thrax couldn't believe it. "That's suicide!" The first human boarding party breached his ship's hull moments later. Armed with modified mining equipment and wearing suits that looked suspiciously like hardened spacesuits designed for volcanic exploration, they began systematically taking control of vital systems. "Sir, they're in the engine room. They're plugging their computers into our systems." "But our technology is far superior. Their primitive computers can't possibly—" "They're not trying to hack it, sir. They're uploading something called cat videos and rickroll into our database. Our AI is having a mental breakdown." The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was becoming clear. Humanity wasn't just fighting back, they were winning. Every piece of technology they'd developed for survival on their death world was being turned into a weapon. Every harsh lesson their planet had taught them was being applied to space warfare. "You know what's truly terrifying?" Commander Pix said as they watched another wing of their fleet succumb to the humans' relentless assault. "This isn't even their final form. They're learning, adapting, even in the middle of combat. Each defeat teaches them how to kill us more efficiently." Zix-Thrax, his mighty invasion force in ruins around him, finally understood. They hadn't discovered a primitive species ready for subjugation. They'd awakened a sleeping giant, a species that had evolved on a world that demanded excellence in the art of survival. And now that giant was wide awake, armed with space technology, and really, really annoyed. "Send the signal," he ordered, his voice hollow. "Full retreat, and may the Void have mercy on any species that tries to invade Earth after this." As the remnants of the alien fleet fled, Admiral Chen's voice echoed one final time across all frequencies. "Next time, just send a diplomacy team. We've got great coffee, decent beer, and we're actually quite friendly when we're not being invaded." While the remnants of the alien fleet attempted to regroup, Admiral Chen decided it was time to show them why testing humanity's patience was a terrible idea. All units, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Operation Stagefright. Across Earth's orbit, hundreds of supposedly disabled human vessels suddenly powered up. The dead orbital platforms burst to life, and from the dark side of the moon, a massive fleet of ships emerged. Humanity's reserve force, hidden in plain sight. You thought we showed you everything, Chen's message broadcast across all frequencies. That's adorable. Zixithrax stared at his tactical display in disbelief. They were holding back this entire time. The new human fleet didn't immediately attack. Instead, they began broadcasting. Every alien ship's communication system was flooded with data packets, historical documentaries about Earth's military conflicts, nature shows about Earth's predators, warning labels from human products. Sir, Commander Pix reported, our translation matrix is processing their data dump. It's their history. The aliens watched in horror as scenes played across their screens. Humans fighting through impossible conditions in places called Stalingrad and Normandy. Creatures called honey badgers, taking down prey 10 times their size, and something particularly terrifying labeled Australian Wildlife Compilation. These beings, an alien officer whispered, they consider these normal conditions? More broadcasts followed, humans surviving in environments ranging from -50 to +50 degrees Celsius, humans consuming substances that should be lethal, humans pursuing prey until it died of exhaustion. They're not just warriors, Zixithrax realized, they're persistent predators. The psychological assault continued. Human ships began playing what they called music on all frequencies, heavy metal and war drums that resonated with the alien ship's hull frequencies. They transmitted recipes for human foods that included known toxins like capsaicin, categorized as mild spices. Panic spread through the alien fleet as they realized the full implications. These weren't just clever primitives. These were beings who had evolved on a death world, survived everything it threw at them, and then decided to colonize even more hostile environments for fun. Sir, an alien sensor operator called out, the humans are deploying something new. Our scanners can't identify the technology. Admiral Chen's voice came over the comms again. Remember those rockets you laughed at? We've made some modifications. Meet the swarm. Thousands of small automated drones launched from Earth's surface. Each one was barely larger than a human hand, powered by simple chemical rockets and armed with nothing more than small explosive charges. Individually, they were harmless to capital ships, but there were millions of them. Are those repurposed cleaning robots? Zixithrax watched in disbelief as the swarm approached. Roomba Battalion, engage! The human command channel crackled with laughter. The modified cleaning robots, now space-capable and equipped with primitive but effective targeting systems, began attaching themselves to alien ships. They weren't trying to breach the hulls. They were looking for sensor arrays, weapon ports, and engine exhausts. They weaponized their domestic appliances, Commander Pix said in a tone of horrified respect, because of course they did. The final straw came when the humans demonstrated their mastery of biological warfare, not with weapons, but with information. They began transmitting data about Earth's microscopic life forms, about bacteria that could eat through metal, about viruses that could survive in space. Did you know, Admiral Chen's transmission was almost cheerful, that we have billions of microscopic organisms living in and on our bodies at all times? We're not just a species, we're a mobile ecosystem of death. The alien fleet's morale broke. Ships began retreating without orders. Entire battle groups turned and fled. The sight of Earth's true military capability, combined with the psychological warfare, proved too much. They live like this, one alien captain was heard screaming over the comm channels. They turned their cleaning devices into weapons. They treat their planet's deadly fauna as pets. And they want to explore space to find more hostile environments. The breaking point came when the humans deployed their final psychological weapon. They transmitted their entertainment media. Alien crews watched in horror as humans depicted themselves fighting off invasions many times worse than the current one. They watched humans triumph against impossible odds, not through superior technology, but through sheer determination and resourcefulness. The scariest part, Zixithrax told his command staff, is that they created these movies for entertainment. They imagined scenarios worse than this battle, for fun. As the alien fleet fell into chaos, Admiral Chen sent one final message. "We could destroy you all right now, but we won't. You know why? Because humans are actually pretty nice when you get to know us. So here's the deal. Go home, tell your council that Earth is not for subjugation, and if anyone else gets any funny ideas about invading us, well, you've seen only a fraction of what we can do when we're annoyed." The remnants of the alien fleet fled in disarray, leaving behind a debris field that would serve as a warning to any future would-be invaders. Humanity wasn't just capable of defending itself. It had turned survival into an art form. The Grand Council chamber had never been so quiet. High Commander Zixathrax stood before them, his once pristine exoskeleton scratched and dented, delivering the most humiliating report in Confederation history. In conclusion, his mandibles clicked weakly, not only did we fail to subjugate Earth, but we also provided them with advanced technology through our destroyed vessels, which they are probably weaponizing as we speak. Councillor Vexnor's crystalline form had lost some of its luster. "Surely you're exaggerating. They can't possibly have—" The chamber's holoscreen activated unexpectedly. Admiral Chen's face appeared, causing several council members to recoil. "Good morning, afternoon, or whatever time it is in your artificial environment," Chen smiled pleasantly. "Hope you don't mind the intrusion. We reverse-engineered your communication systems last week. Cool tech, by the way. We made some improvements." "This is outrageous," Vexnor vibrated in anger. "This is a closed session of the Grand Council." "About that," Chen continued, ignoring the outburst, "we've drafted a peace treaty. Don't worry, the terms are quite reasonable. We're not interested in conquest. We've got enough on our plate exploring space and finding new challenges." "Challenges?" A methane-breathing councillor bubbled nervously. "Oh yes, we just found out space has these amazing things called black holes and neutron stars. Can't wait to study those up close. But first, let's discuss diplomatic relations." The treaty terms scrolled across the screen. They were surprisingly lenient, mainly requiring recognition of Earth's sovereignty and the establishment of trade relations. Several council members noted with relief that humans were willing to share their entertainment media. "This is most irregular," Vexnor protested weakly. "The Confederation doesn't negotiate with pre-FTL species." "About that too," Chen grinned. "Thanks to all the ships you left behind, we've figured out FTL travel. Amazing what humans can do with some spare parts, and a few engineering students hopped up on energy drinks." The council chamber erupted in chaos. A species mastering FTL travel in weeks instead of centuries? Impossible. "Oh, and one more thing," Chen added. "We've declared our entire solar system a nature preserve, to protect all our lovely deadly wildlife. Any unauthorized entry will be met with extreme ecological protection measures." As the transmission ended, the council sat in stunned silence. Finally, a silicon-based entity spoke up. "Did anyone else notice their reasonable treaty includes mandatory participation in something called Interstellar Olympic Games? They want to compete with us for fun?" Commander Pix, who had been quietly watching, suddenly laughed. "Of course they do. They're humans." The treaty was ratified in record time. Within months, humanity had joined the galactic community on their own terms. Their reputation spread quickly. A species so tough they considered daily survival a hobby, so innovative they treated technological barriers as suggestions, and so paradoxical they could be both the most terrifying warriors and the most enthusiastic party hosts in known space. Earth quickly became known for two things: being a place no sane being would try to invade, and throwing the best diplomatic gatherings in the galaxy. Humans, it turned out, had mastered the art of turning enemies into friends, usually over something they called barbecue. Years later, a junior diplomat asked Zixathrax, now Earth's permanent ambassador to the Confederation, why he had accepted the position. "Because," he replied, watching a human teach a group of alien children how to make s'mores, "sometimes the most valuable lesson is learning when you've underestimated someone. Humans taught us that the true mark of an apex predator isn't just the ability to win fights, it's knowing when not to start them." He paused, then added with a click of his mandibles, "Also, have you tried their coffee? That stuff's better than any chemical stimulant in the galaxy. Just don't ask what it actually is. Trust me on this one."